Now, we're gonna put this on the table for a second. We got a caller on the air, and he is the chair of the National Libertarian Party. He was just elected chair this year, and I've known this gentleman for a number of years, particularly on the old Libertarian Republicans Yahoo group. And very smart guy all the way around. Probably one of the top libertarian attorneys I know in his neck of the woods. Please welcome our very good friend Nick Sarwark. Nick, you with us?
Thanks for having me. Sorry it took a while for me to get connected.
Yes,
I'm here now.
You're here now.
Welcome to the table, Nick.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, Nick. It's great to have you on. And I just wanted to start off by saying that it's about time the LP is getting into full gear and full-blown course to getting the message out and pushing for liberty more so than, say, the establishment Republican Party. So my kudos to you and to the National Party itself. But let's start with how you got into libertarianism and how you managed to get elected to the national chair seat of the National Party this past July.
And before you do, I would like to ask everyone that's not speaking to mute your mics. That way we don't have the background noise. Thank you. Go ahead, Nick.
All right, so I got into libertarianism because my father was a libertarian. He took me to a libertarian meeting in Phoenix probably when I was 10 or 12 years old and had, David Bergland's book around the house. And I'm one of the few second-generation libertarians, although there are more of us coming up every day. And hopefully my kids will end up being third-generation libertarians. As far as how I ended up being chair of the National Party, I saw that we had gone about 10 years without a lot of growth, either in members or money or, political success. And going into the 2016 election cycle, I felt like it was time for a change. And so, I mounted a campaign and I won.
Congratulations.
Or is that commiseration?
It's a little bit of both. It's a tough job.
Yeah.
That was a good one, Bill. I
have to admit here, I guess the question that I want to ask you about, what do you think the LP has done right and wrong throughout the course of its existence so far? I mean, I think the LP has done a lot of great things. I think that there have been some wonderful things going on. I've spoken to a lot of people over the years. They were not happy with the way things were progressing in the party. Do you think the party is turning around after the disastrous presidential nomination of Bob Barr in 2008?
Yeah, I think, what the party's done right is stick with, libertarian principles and not back away from, common sense views about human freedom. The things we've done wrong always come down to, sort of backing away from a real libertarian message. The Barr campaign was not my favorite. He kind of came into it, I think, expecting that having had been a congressman, that things would go a lot better than they did and didn't really have a plan for how to run a libertarian campaign. But I'm more forward-looking than backward-looking. And I know what we're doing right now is continuing to present a strong libertarian message and continuing to kind of put the lie to the idea that there's anything left of either the Democratic or Republican parties that's worth saving.
Right.
Well, speaking of looking forward, Nick, I would like to extend an invitation to you as the chairman of the Libertarian National Party to join me and the Arkansas Libertarian Party in promoting through hosting of a screening of the film Alongside Night, a film created by J. Neil Schulman based upon his 1979 graphic novel by the same title, Alongside Night. It is an excellent movie that contains within it the message of freedom. And I think getting the National Party behind it will help it and the National Party both. And all the proceeds from the screenings can go to each state chapter to help their coffers. And so I just wanted to, live on the air, put you on the spot and invite you to join us.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. I know that there was a screening of it at the National Convention in Columbus. I know a number of our state party affiliates have had a screening of it. As far as the National Party goes, it's always tricky for us to screen anything just because, all politics is local, and it's even more so in the Libertarian Party. All the action is really at the state affiliate level. That's where they nominate all the candidates except for president. That's where they, go out in the streets and actually fight those elections. So, the best I can probably do is let the state chairs know that it's available.
That's right.
But we're also a pretty decentralized party, so I don't get to tell any of them what to do.
Of course.
Never could.
We don't want to violate that most basic rule.
Right.
Yeah. Well, as libertarians, even if I could tell them what to do, they probably wouldn't.
Of course. It's like herding a bunch of wild cats, right?
Cat herding would be easier.
Yeah.
Speaking of something.
Remember, Mark, we're not a bunch of wild animals, that need to be in a zoo. We're doing just fine. You were going to say, Bill.
Yeah, speaking of something old and something new, I just looked at my biography, and this is actually the 40th anniversary of me being elected National Secretary of the Libertarian Party. So that gives you an idea of how old I am.
That's a good anniversary to have.
Yeah, 40th. And looking to the future, obviously next year.
Congratulations, Bill.
Next year is an election year, and I assume that you're in contact with people who've expressed an interest in running for president. Is the LP going to have a credible candidate next year?
I think we will. I know Governor Johnson is considering it, although he hasn't officially announced. I know that Joshua Katz from Connecticut just announced an exploratory committee last weekend.
Really?
He did at the Massachusetts Libertarian Convention. Those are the two that I know of offhand. There are some other people, I hear things, but nothing official.
We need a libertarian candidate who is a melding of both Harry Brown and Ron Paul in the party, who is going to extend further than what Ron Paul was able to accomplish in the GOP in both 2008 and 2012. So that would be if we can find that candidate, and if it's either Johnson or maybe Joshua Katz, that would be fantastic. I wish Gary Johnson would drop the fair tax position and come our way a little bit more on that. But so far he wasn't all that too bad. on the position. He was far better than, say, Bob Barr or Wayne Allen Roots.
You're not setting a high bar, buddy. No, I saw him speak at the Colorado convention. He still supports the national sales tax as some sort of interim measure, but he's backed off it some from where he was when he was running in 2012. So, I hear that criticism a lot, and, everybody's different, but if people keep working on him, he might change his mind, and, he might not.
We have our work cut out for us to with regards to that, especially the fair tax. But I guess the question I have is, with this midterm election, and it's been prophesized so far that this election is going to be a downer, particularly for the voters, particularly for the millennials. And everybody is like, no, I'm staying home. I couldn't give a rat's ass if, the Republicans overtake the Senate, or if the Democrats somehow do an upswing. I think that I think the fault obviously is coming from the major parties, but what can the Libertarian Party do to get the millennials, back them up, and possibly overtake any one of those candidates running on the GOP or Democratic sides?
Well, first thing we have to do is show up. We've got 786 candidates running this election cycle. My hope is in the 2016 we have, double that number. We have to let people know what we're about, because the surveys show that most millennials have very libertarian views. There's a couple of things they might disagree with us on, but far and away they agree with us more than any of the old parties. And frankly, I don't know if you've watched a debate with, a Republican and a Democrat when a Libertarian's not there, but it's childish and stupid. They spend all their time talking about you're just a shill for Obama, or you're just, a tool of the Koch brothers, and you're unethical, and not a word is said about any solution that would increase liberty or freedom. But when you get a Libertarian on stage in that debate, it's clear who the adult in the room is. When Sean Haw was on stage with Tillis and Hagan in North Carolina, they just kept sniping at each other about, who was shadier and who was a worse person. And Sean's actually talking about, stopping war and legalizing marijuana and marriage equality and not spending so much of our damn money. And it was clear he's the only adult in the room. And that, just getting that message out there, people are smarter than we give them credit for. If they know that we're there and we're presenting a serious option, then they'll vote for us.
Right. Well, what really gets my goat is when you have wingnuts like Ann Coulter, who appeared on Stossel a few days ago. And she was doing a segment where she said that she wanted to drown John Stossel because of his support for libertarians, because of the election cycle where you want all these radical situations, just do it within the Republican Party because we got to stop the liberals and whatnot. And and I'm thinking to myself, the first thing that she says coming out of her mouth is, oh, well, libertarians are costing Republicans seats. They're spoilers in the race. I'm thinking, you idiots. Libertarians are helping the races, not costing elections. Even if there were no libertarian candidates running, the Democrats could either win or lose the race either way. Same thing with the Republican candidates. And she goes, well, that's not true. That's not true. What do you say to that?
I say, who gives a shit? This is the internet, right? I can say that.
Wait. Was that Nick?
That was me.
Nick? Oh, Nick,
I don't care which of the shitty old parties wins an election, because they both cheat with both hands. They both spend all their time and money trying to keep us off the ballot and keep us out of debates. And I would challenge you, the next time somebody says it matters whether a Republican gets elected, name the last tax a Republican cut. Name the last government program a Republican shut down.
Exactly.
And listen to the deafening silence and tell them to take their shitty old party and move on to something more productive.
Shove it up their ass. Let's just put it
well, I didn't want to say that.
Okay, there you go.
I am a national chair and all.
Right.
But I would encourage them to move on to more productive pursuits. You know, I talk to conservatives, and I tell them, look, more power to you if you think you can fix the Republican Party. But I've seen what happened in 2008 and 2012 and what's probably going to happen in 2016. The GOP machine will crush any libertarian impulse within their party. And so as soon as you get tired of beating your head against that brick wall, as soon as your head hurts too much, come on home to the libertarians where we actually believe in freedom, and you won't have to fight us to fight for freedom. We'll fight with you, not against you.
But you know something? What really fucking pisses me off about Ann Coulter, more than anything else, is that she is the one who, as far as I'm concerned, she is this stupid ass nitwit who is, drumming up the war machine, drumming up the welfare machines, and she's oiling every single Republican candidate out there who wants to grow the size of the state. As much as, say, Al Sharpton wants to grow the size and cost and scope of the state as well. And,
well, Ann Coulter is just whoring herself out. Let's just put that bluntly, too.
Yeah, she's nothing but a media whore who really wants to pretty much destroy libertarians.
Not to criticize you guys.
The only thing that pisses me off about Ann Coulter is that she doesn't wear a clown suit. And she really is a clown. The things that come out of her mouth are so humorous and so ridiculous that I think she should be required to wear a little rubber ball on her nose or something like that.
I don't think she needs to because she's
mentioned
better.
The name of a washed-up performance artist at least 4 times in the last 2 minutes.
Yep.
Are we talking about the same person?
I'm not even going to talk about that person. If she wants to try and drown me, she'll find out I've taken swimming lessons. But, she has
even
and it doesn't really do much. She's not serious, and giving her the attention, we thought about releasing a press release after she threatened to drown all of us and decided that we'd rather not give her the oxygen.
No.
Thank you for doing that.
Well, I think that was very commendable, and I think you did the right thing.
No doubt about it.
I just wanted to say that, if she is a clone, Bill, does that mean that she's Ronald McDonald's cousin married to her?
Ronald McDonald's hamburgers, I'm sure, are much better than Ann Coulter's.
I don't know now. I don't want to be quite that cruel.
To get Ann Coulter off the agenda here, I have good news for an LP candidate. Got 2 votes for sure. Aaron Starr, who is a member of the LP National Board, I believe, is running for Oxnard City Council, and we happen to live in Oxnard. This is in California, near Los Angeles, and so of course my wife and I both voted for him. and helping out a little bit in the campaign. But this is a nonpartisan office, so he's not mentioning his party affiliation at all, even though it shows up in some of his bios. So what I'm curious about, you mentioned some number, 700 candidates.
786.
How many of those are for partisan offices where they're actually identified as libertarians?
I believe that is the partisan count, but I have to go double check with my national staff to be sure. I mean, I'm aware of Aaron running. I actually sent him a check early on before he even had a website up. And those are good races to run for those libertarians who feel that that's where they would be the most effective. The way I look at it, though, is the partisan races are more beneficial to the party as a whole.
Yeah.
The reason being that it's a type of free advertising because it says libertarian on the ballot. And if we can keep showing up and make it normal that libertarian is just an option that's there with those other two crappy options, then we can win the credibility battle and get more people to actually vote for us. You know, we spent a couple $100, or I don't know how much it was, to actually put a statement in the Oregon voter guide against their top two initiative, you know, over my signature as chair of the Libertarian National Committee, because that's basically free advertising for the libertarians. The state of Oregon is going to print out that pamphlet and send it to every Oregon voter. So, you know, every time a libertarian runs, it's kind of like free advertising for us, and it just reminds them that we're not going away.
Well, you have to send a thank you note to the state of California because they have a ballot argument thing on propositions. And back when I was the Libertarian Party of California chair, I wrote the argument against one of the propositions, and they printed up God knows how many, 7 million copies of this thing, with Libertarian Party of California Chairman William Westmiller arguing in opposition. It was Veterans Bond or something. So I've been doing that all along. I'm not sure that's done all that much good. But I do recall, because I was active back then, that Dave Nolan made it perfectly clear when the party was founded that the purpose wasn't to elect libertarians, but to take advantage of the opportunities that come with being a formal political party and having designated candidates so that you could participate in the debates or at least expose the ideas through media and so on and so forth, practically for free. And I'm very impressed, and I think the LP has been very successful at that task. Electing partisan candidates to office, not so successful. But if nothing else, you're influencing the national debate, and you're influencing the state debates and the local debates, and the word libertarian is becoming part of the cultural lexicon. People, more and more know what it means, and that's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, and I know that David, may he rest in peace, didn't start the party thinking that we'd win elections, but there's no reason why we shouldn't start doing it anyway.
Well, you have to get...
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry.
No, I was just say, in practical electoral terms, I think that the highest vote total for any partisan libertarian office was something like 16% when there wasn't a Republican in the race, and something like 6% for three-way race.
Maybe in California, it was in the high 40s in Colorado last election cycle. Because here's what happens. If you show up in all the races, it turns out that on occasion the old parties nominate people who are less than stellar. There was a guy in Grand Junction area in Colorado who he was a police officer, and maybe he was corrupt, and maybe he lied about a bunch of stuff, and then maybe the local newspaper actually endorsed the Libertarian over the Republican, and but if you don't have somebody in the race, you don't have the opportunity to take advantage of it. And that a lot of this is showing up. And my personal opinion is that if you don't show up, you can't win. You might not win anyway, but you definitely can't win if you don't show up.
Sure.
I remember back many years ago, I heard many years ago, even when I first came into the party, that I think there were maybe one candidate who got elected to the state legislature, or maybe there were a couple or so. I can't remember. I can't remember her name honestly, but I think it was in Vermont or Connecticut or one of the states in the New England colonies. But she actually did. She won. I think by a landslide or something, and I think she was there only for maybe a term, maybe two. I'm not so sure. I'll have to look into that. But still, I think that there is something to be said that libertarians can win state legislatures to advance to, say, Congress and the Senate. Because, as far as I'm concerned, the lackluster appeal for the midterm elections, Democrats typically lose in midterms, and only Republican candidates happen to be the victors during that period, with the exception of 2006, when the Democrats won the midterms. And that was it. But what do you think is the next step for 2016? Do you think that we're going to have a much bigger slate of candidates for 2016 as opposed to this season? And if so, what's the strategy? What do you think that the strategy should be?
Well, it's a multi-pronged strategy. We at the national office have developed candidate training to improve candidate communication, the ability to kind of turn mainstream interviews away from the topics they want to talk about and refocus on, cutting government and advancing liberty. We're expanding that training program. We're expanding affiliate support so that we can help those state parties that do want to show up for all the elections and do want to flood the zone with how to recruit candidates, how to recruit good candidates, how to create a volunteer effort to, candidate recruitment is not rocket science. We've run huge slates in Colorado when I was in the state party there, and it just comes down to getting a spreadsheet and getting volunteers to get on the phone and ask people to step up to the plate, and then thank them after they have. So I think that we can get a significant improvement in the number of candidates that we've run, not just over 2014, but over 2012, because it is a presidential year, so there's more races going. And I think that I've seen vast improvement in the quality of candidates that are attracted to the Libertarian Party. There's a state candidate in Ohio named Chad Monin who's put in $100,000 of his own money. He's a small businessman and retired vet. There's, Lucas Overby down in Florida is in a two-way race, and he's really solid on the issues. Sean Haw in North Carolina, everyone made fun of him because he was a pizza delivery man. But as the race has progressed, he's just shown that libertarianism makes sense no matter who the messenger is. And his race, actually, I don't know if you saw this, has attracted about $300,000 in dark money from a Koch brother-backed organization to try and use Sean Haw to attack the Democrat by highlighting that he's pro-marijuana legalization and anti-war.
That works.
So,
Right.
There are worse things for them to do than spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to tell people that libertarians are awesome. If they want to do it to hurt some other old party, so be it.
I have a question for you can't answer.
Okay.
Or at least that you won't answer. I understand that the LP bylaws forbid your party from endorsing Republicans or Democrats or anybody in another party.
Correct.
Assuming, and it's not impossible, maybe the chances are slim, that Rand Paul gets the GOP nomination for president. I assume the LP will not endorse him, but what are the chances that the candidates, Gary Johnson, whoever, will decide that they would rather not, distract people from Rand Paul's campaign?
It's funny because I did answer a question that was almost this question for a reporter from U.S. News and World Report just yesterday.
Okay.
So it's a question I've mostly answered. The way you phrase it, I can't answer it. But here's the deal. The Libertarian Convention is going to be in Orlando in May of 2016. I expect to see you all there. I'll look forward to it. The GOP nomination won't be wrapped up until sometime in the summer of 2016. So there's no way that the convention delegates could, the question that was asked by them was, would the LP not run somebody or cross-nominate him? And the answer was, it's just not possible to do that because it won't be settled out. Now, the question you asked is a much smarter question, which is, our presidential candidate, what will he do if it turns out that Rand Paul does get the nomination? I have a fiduciary duty and just a natural desire to support the Libertarian candidate. I'm not the biggest fan of the junior senator from Kentucky because he, actively goes out and campaigns for Republicans against Libertarians. He's their go-to guy to close an election if it looks like a Libertarian-leaning, primary opponent is getting out there or a Libertarian candidate is getting too much press. He's the guy that goes in and assures people that they should really vote for this, party machine elitist hack because Rand Paul's standing next to him. But, I think that's a good question to ask the potential nominees at the convention in Orlando. So before you give them the nomination, you know what they would do, whether it's your opinion that they ought to step aside or drop out of the race or stop actively campaigning, or if it's your opinion that they shouldn't. You should at least know what your nominee says he's going to do before you give him the nomination. Right. So I would hold that question until May of 2016.
Okay.
Right. I was just going to say, if we're talking about somebody who is somebody, for all intents and purposes.
You're going to say that Rand Paul is a quasi-libertarian?
Sorry about that. I got pulled in by Will Colley, our friend Will Colley for Muslims for Liberty. So just so you know. Okay. So, as I was trying to say, Nick, are you talking about like standing by somebody who is unlibertarian, like, say, Mitch McConnell or Ted Cruz?
He's supported Mitch McConnell. He's come out and endorsed Mitch McConnell. We have a libertarian in that race. He actively campaigns against libertarians. He is not our friend.
Right.
Let me take a slightly different perspective on that issue. You had a little bit of a rant earlier about people involved in trying to change the Republican Party, and of course that's precisely what the Republican Liberty Caucus does. We're basically libertarians trying to work within the Republican Party to get their positions more in line with libertarian ideals. And it's primarily a tactical or a strategic plan that has worked out quite well in a lot of different states. And it's actually got people that maybe they weren't pure libertarians, but they, advocated libertarian positions and so on.
There's no reason, Bill, why we can't all work together. Continue.
Oh yeah. But I just I'm a little uncomfortable when I hear Libertarian Party people saying, "Oh, those people in the GOP that want to change it to libertarian, they're going to get crushed, and it's a hopeless case, and so on and so forth." And I don't think that's necessarily the case. So I'm just asking for a little bit of deference to the true libertarians that are using a different tactic.
How many?
Right. Well, that's your path. That's your path, and I want to commend you, for what you're doing.
And don't get me wrong. I think that the RLC does good work within the Republican Party. I do not think that they are historically effective, and I do not think that they can be as effective as the Libertarian Party, which is why I'm chair of the Libertarian Party and not the RLC. There is a short list of libertarian-leaning Republicans who have actually been elected to office. Where the RLC runs into a real challenge as an organization is, when are you willing to walk away from the Republican? When are you willing to say publicly, don't elect that Republican?
Well, here's a perspective. I mean, we have a statement of principles. We have a candidate quiz that we send out to all the potential candidates.
They do.
So, and the criteria is if they get 80% or higher on the quiz, then we're willing to consider them if they're viable candidates and so on. However, look at it this way. If we can get libertarians in the GOP to successfully change the direction of the party and to get actual office holders with strong libertarian leanings elected as Republicans, when the Libertarian Party becomes evidently viable as an electoral organization, what's going to happen? It's all of those RLC candidates who are in Congress or in the Senate that are going to look at it and say, hey, maybe I need to switch. And so you may end up with a lot of incumbent politicians with very strong libertarian leanings switching to the LP as soon as they think it's viable enough to get them reelected.
That's true. That's true. And there's another thing. I just wrote an article for Reason that hasn't published yet about why people should vote Libertarian. And I had a bunch of reasons, but one of them is the truth is that if you are a fan of libertarian-leaning Republicans like Massey and Amash and Paul, then you should vote Libertarian, assuming that you're not in Michigan's 3rd or Kentucky's 4th district. You should vote Libertarian because, frankly, that gives them cover to buck the party machine. If there's a sizable Libertarian bloc, they can go to their leadership and say, look, don't tell me not to be Libertarian. Look at all these Libertarian voters. If you don't let me vote my conscience on some of these things, we're going to lose some elections. So, voting Libertarian can actually help the people who want to work within the Republican Party more so than voting Republican outside of, a particular couple 3 districts.
Well, I'm in California, and it's interesting because, of course, all the ballots are secret ballots.
Right.
But even while I was chairman of the RLC, I was voting for LP candidates whenever they were on the ballot, even though I was.
Of course you were.
Even though I was, out there saying, you Republicans have to, get, more in tune with the libertarian positions on the issues if you want to get some of these voters. And so,
ultimately,
and you know something, Bill. What's really disappointing about the GOP, if anything else, is that for the longest time, you have so many social conservatives who have ruled the GOP for far so long that they really don't want to let go. When it comes to issues like gay marriage or the war on drugs or even, say, police state issues, they're thinking, oh, well, we got to still make it so that only men and women can get married, but not a couple of gay men who really want to say I do's before their priests or their pastors or whoever in a church or a chapel. If we can't
I think that was true 20 years ago. I don't think that's true anymore today, partially because of the libertarians in the party, but also because of the general cultural milieu. The social conservatives are dead in the water. Every time they run, they get beaten like crazy, and just even among the establishment. They don't want those crazy social conservatives coming out and say, well, rape is just a bad case of the woman enticing men, or whatever stupid comment they make about that. And gay marriage. I mean, the premier attorney that is most widely recognized as a prominent Republican influential person was the chief person arguing against DOMA in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but wasn't it him and Boies together, wasn't it? It was Walter Olson and David Boies.
Yeah.
Two people who have been on the opposite sides of a lot of things.
Right.
There's been movement in the Republican Party.
Yeah.
But it's not. I just don't think it's good enough, because what it's moved to is, if you look at Rand Paul, he still opposes gay marriage. He's just smart enough to hide his light under a bushel and say, well, let's just leave that to the states. He still opposes marijuana legalization. He just thinks we probably shouldn't punish it as much. So there's movement, but the nature of politics is you have to be
right.
The Overton window doesn't shift unless there's somebody outside it saying, get all the way over here.
What's really disappointing about Rand Paul is that, he says that he's against interventionism. He's, trying to push more Republicans towards non-interventionism, which sounds great, but then he says on the other side of his mouth, we need to launch some drones to wipe out some of the enemy Al-Qaeda or some of the members of ISIS, for crying out loud.
He also said to an evangelical group that an attack on Israel is an attack on the U.S. And if there was a military attack against the state of Israel, that the United States Army would be required and obliged to invade whatever country that is.
By the way,
I wonder if he wants congressional approval for that.
Right. By the way, folks, this is Will Colley, the founder.
Hey, Will.
Will of Muslims for Liberty. He's also joining us tonight. So
I was wondering who that was that joined the call, and it's quite a pleasure. Welcome.
Yeah. So, he's also joining in as another panelist with us. Why not?
Yeah, so the thing about Rand Paul is he's triangulating.
We've still got I'm sorry. I was just going to say, don't forget we still have Tame Elf on the line.
And we also have Tame Elf on the line. What do you think about, do you have a question for Nick, Tame?
I haven't voted for I don't know how long, 15 years. There's never been a politician anywhere near me. I'm in the UK, and Labour Party tend to look after the poor, but they're supposed to. Well, that's the theory behind the party. And the Tories, the Conservative Party, tend to look after the rich. But over the last 20 years, it's been like a parasitical loop that the agenda never changes. Just people are getting ripped off. More legislation is introduced, and I'm actually on this program, by the way, under my real name, believe it or not. Now, I'm not going any further into that on this particular talk because I don't want to embarrass anybody on the show.
Well, you're not embarrassing anybody, so you don't have to worry about that.
I might I love everybody. I can't harm anybody on the planet. That even means by embarrassing them on a live radio show.
Oh,
so I will not. No, I'm serious. I can't hurt no one. That is emotional as well.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with all the drones in your backyard?
Sorry?
What are you doing with all the drones in the backyard? I think I better look out my window see one of your drones is out there just in case I say something wrong.
Oh, drones? No, well, we had a census about 2 years ago, and when the guy come up my path, I basically told him that he was working for the American government, and I couldn't give him any information because that would be treason against the British government.
There you go.
And I was correct. And it's just the way it is. It's all divide and conquer. It's pointless. I'm doing more to change my environment by doing absolutely nothing and standing in truth.
Right. I guess I wanted to ask you, Nick, this whole thing about ISIS, we're all, we're neck deep into this, this whole situation in the Middle East. We're trying to, fight the Muslims, and their home turf. They're, all Muslims are terrorists, and we keep hearing this from the pro-war crowd, and the Obama administration, is soft-pedaling on this, and the Republicans are like, well, Obama's not doing enough to, wipe all those people out of existence. He's not dropping a bomb on Mecca. What do you think about ISIS and the current geopolitical instability in the Middle East?
I think that there's no way. So when this whole thing first started, probably like 4 months ago, we were literally firing our missiles to blow up 155 millimeter artillery pieces that we had given to the last set of good guys in order to fight the bad guys. But the last set of good guys maybe left them behind for the new set of bad guys. And the quote-unquote plan is that we're going to find new good guys to give a whole bunch of money and weapons to. And they're sure as shit not going to become the bad guys like the last good guys did. This time we picked them the right way. And right after that plan got passed, or not even passed, right after Congress rolled over and let the president do whatever he wanted to without any sort of check or balance, there was a bombing in which half of the quote-unquote good guys we had picked all got killed in a single house while they were having a meeting. So we're sort of running out of good guys to fight the bad guys. You may know where a really bad dude lives. Who the hell says to themselves, well, I want to go fight him in his own house? That's insane. Why would you go fight him in his own house? When when cops would arrest violent criminals back when I was doing criminal defense, it's the drug dealers that they kick the door down. The violent criminals, you kind of wait for them to go to the store when they don't expect it, and then you pick them up. This idea that you would go to their home base and decide to fight them on their own turf is insane. Just tactically insane, putting aside all of the, non-interventionist, and the fact that we can't afford it. It's just dumb.
Right. I think you were going to say something to that effect. Well, go ahead.
You talking to me?
Will Colley.
Okay.
Oh, me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Well, you have to look at the situation, and it didn't really just start, 4 months ago. This is a situation that's literally it's a century old. We set, we personally, the Western countries, particularly the United Kingdom, set the chessboard for today's modern reality. with the Sykes-Picot Agreement and the Balfour Declarations, and Winston Churchill thinking that he could create nation-states in the Middle East where nation-states had never existed before, and then purposely draw lines on a map over tea, as he bragged one time, putting groups of people that historically didn't get along with each other. Even when there was the Ottoman Empire and they all lived under the Ottomans, the only way that they got along was the fact that they weren't forced to follow a singular leadership. Each group was allowed to have its own leaders, just no one was higher than the Ottoman leader. But each community, from Christians to from Christians to Jews to Zoroastrians, animists, pagans, variant Muslim groups, the Kurds, and they all had their own independent leadership, independent of the Ottoman leadership. And basically, that's what started this whole thing. Then they put the Saudis and their violent ideology and their violent understandings of the faith had been all but completely eradicated right around the turn of the 20th century. They invaded Mecca. They actually militarily occupied Mecca, burned buildings, burned libraries. The stories that were given by people in Mecca was that the armies were literally treading the Quran under their feet, if that gives you an idea of how religious they are. They were actually walking on our holy book, which is a massive insult. But they were literally almost completely wiped out. And then the UK saw them as a group of crazies that would help them overthrow the Ottomans and started funding them 10,000 British gold pounds a month at the turn of the century, at the turn of the 20th century, pumping money, weapons, military training, soldiers into their efforts to overthrow the Ottomans to destabilize the region. So foreign intervention is what caused this mess to start with. And I don't understand how anyone in their right mind who has the ability to sit back and actually look at history can think that foreign intervention would be what solves the problem.
And let me just add that they took relatively free people, okay?
Yeah.
A relatively free people compared to how we live in America today, even, right?
Yeah.
We are not free. We are not free.
Well, funny enough, and John Locke, his contemporaries that didn't like him used to actually mock him and say that he was Muslim because of his position on pluralism, and they would mock him as a homosexual because of the fact that the Turks had a hands-off approach to homosexuality. That's your culture and your way, and has nothing to do with the state.
And we also have to take into account that American colonialism is also responsible for this as well.
Well, it was French and British colonialism first, and basically the Americans went in there and just took the reins from the colonial powers that were already there.
Right. You're absolutely right. Because remember, especially with respect to Iraq is actually a country that was invented by the British and the French.
Mm-hmm.
And now, and with full backing on some level by our government, by
the CIA.
But with the CIA, coming in and going in, installing the Shah of Iran in 1952, and then next thing you know, the deposing of the Shah in 1979, which actually was the reason why there were hostages going on at that time. So the whole situation was started largely because, we had to do something to control the Middle East and re-engineer society. Re-engineering society has become the big thing.
Well, the good news, Todd, is that the controllers in the truest sense, are the controlled, okay? This system that all of consciousness has created, that means we're included, right?
Right.
We created this system, and those I come from a Christian tradition, right? And the mark of the beast system that the Bible talks about in Revelation 18 when it says, come out of her, my people. What I have found is a way to truly come out of this system. And I spell system CYST because it is cancerous. And the way that you come out of it is what all the great philosophers and great thinkers throughout history told us. Know thyself. Know who you truly are. You are not that name that people call you, because when you were born, that name was sold to the Crown Corporation when your parents registered you at birth. Okay? So you're not that name, and you're not the body you're in. You're nothing but pure, eternal spirit. And so all this stuff, the political parties and politicians will never solve any of these things we're discussing tonight. It's impossible for them to.
I wish this country had actually adhered to Washington's old axiom, which is peace, friendship, and commerce with all nations, entangling alliances with none. That's what Washington said. And remember, John Quincy Adams, who went before the legislature in the 1820s, said, America does not go abroad in search of monsters to destroy. That's exactly what he was trying to warn us. He was warning us that if we continue on our path, because we were going after the Barbary pirates, we were going to, at some point later on in the 19th century, sticking our nose into the Philippines. It's all an illusion, Todd. It's all an illusion. All that we think is real isn't real, and all that we think isn't real, that which is invisible, is all that is real. Oh, there you go.
Oh, I was hot. The concept of yes, gentlemen, I gotta go. But I thank you.
But Nick, I just wanted to ask you one final question.
Okay.
Are you going to be running for the chair seat again in 2016, or are you going to, reserve your decision until then?
Probably yes, unless I do a really bad job.
You're gonna run against Matt and I? You're the guy with RLC, right?
No. I'm chair of the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, Matt is RLC.
So I'm going to run against whoever thinks I'm doing a bad job.
All right.
Well, take it easy, Nick. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're with us. And, coming 2016, if I'm ever in the convention seat, you'll definitely be getting my vote.
All right. Thanks very much.
Yep. Take it easy.
All right. Bye.